Hi, welcome to Module 4. We're going to talk about how to disrupt patterns in our lives and turn our hurt into hope. Two very, very important secrets. Yes, I give you more than 7 secrets in this course in case you haven't noticed that yet. Like I said in the beginning, I wanted to make sure that I over deliver, give you way more than you were expecting for the price that you paid for this course. So the importance of disrupting our patterns is because when we disrupt our patterns, we can change our behavior, we can change the outcome that we're used to having. So if it's an addiction, say we're addicted to food or sex or drugs or alcohol, or there's a number of things that could be harmful to us that we're addicted to, smoking, things like that, vaping, I could go on. A lot of stuff comes into my head, but basically it's important to break those patterns that are causing us pain and causing harm to our bodies, our mind, and our spirit. And everything always starts at the level of, you guessed it, your head. What you're thinking. What you think about, you bring about is a very popular saying, or as a man thinketh, so is he. You've probably heard that. And there's truth to that. Our emotions are our feelings in motion, but how do those feelings come to us? They come based on what we chose to think about something or what value that we assigned to something. So the only way to break those patterns is to change our thought. And in order to change the thought, we first have to become aware that we are in a pattern. One of the things that I have taught my clients is that our spirit knows the truth. It knows the absolute truth about, life, reality, who we are. We talked about in module 1 who you are and your identity. And so when you start to think or believe something that's not in alignment with truth, eternal truth, then we actually feel emotional pain. And that's because it's our spirit letting us know that we're using our mind to think about something that is not true, which is creating an emotional pain that we continue to feel. And when we start to feel any pain at all or discomfort, it is important that we stop immediately and recount, what did we just think? What did we just tell ourselves? What was the thought that entered before the pain did? And at first, this can take a lot of concentration and focus because it's not a natural instinct that most people have. But once you start doing it and you get really good at it, then it becomes really easy to start to catch your thoughts. When I first started doing this, oh my goodness, I would suddenly catch myself not feeling happy in the shower or while I was getting ready in the mirror, and I'd catch myself and be like, what was I just thinking? And I realized that I'd been thinking all these negative thoughts, like one after another, after another, after another, and just really being mean to myself. That mean girl voice that I talk about. But I wasn't even conscious of it. As I'm like washing my hair, I was having this go through my head. It was a pattern that had gotten there either through childhood or of my own doing. Who knows? I don't know. But that's not what matters. What matters is that I became conscious of it, that I was aware that it had happened, and that I needed to, take the time to confront that. There's different ways that we can confront it. One of the ways that I like to use is, like, say I thought, I can't do this or I'm stupid. Then I would say to myself, well, yeah, I used to think that. And the truth is that I'm intelligent. I am smart, something like that. Or I can do this. I can do hard things. I've done many hard things, and I'll start giving my own mind all the evidence that I have of different hard things that I've done in the past. So with some effort, you can break these patterns in your life. And of course, there's other patterns too that we can encounter because we're used to them in our life. For example, if we, in my case, I'm going to use myself as an example, grew up in a home where there's divorce over and over again. We may develop patterns that we're not even aware of. Some of the patterns over the years that I became aware of was that I thought that dads are replaceable. You can just pull one man out and put another man in. I didn't treat the men in my life the same as I did my children, for example. I would say, say that my children made a mistake, they did something, they screwed up. I'm not going to abandon them. I'm not going to leave them. I'm going to be there for them and help them work through it. But I didn't treat men in my life that way. If they screwed up, man, they were just gone. I mean, obviously, we're not talking about abuse here, because if there's physical and sexual abuse and that you're in danger, then yes, take the man or whoever it is, the woman, out of your life. But if we're just talking in general, that you didn't like their behavior, or they're annoying, or they screwed up in some way that wasn't harmful to you or your children, then you probably need to think about, like I did, that they're my family and I wouldn't abandon them just like I wouldn't abandon my children. And it took me a long time to realize I had that pattern. Like, I was well into adulthood before that registered, because I'd been working on other thoughts, and that's when it occurred to me. And sometimes there's an absence of a father, so we don't have our pattern include one either. I had a client who never knew their father, never knew who their father was, and when they were being raised, their grandfather had also passed away, and so they were raised by their grandmother and their mother in the same home. So in their mind, when they grew up, they would have kids. Yes, they knew they had to have a husband to have children, but they didn't have any desire to really have a relationship with a man, because they'd never seen an example of there being one, and they found that really difficult, and they, just wanted to have the children. So it's a pattern that they couldn't even see until we talked about it in a session. So sometimes we need someone else to help us see our patterns, and sometimes just by being really thoughtful and pondering, we can find them ourselves. Another example that just came to mind was many, many years ago. I was complaining about stuff going on in my life, and I was just like ranting and freaking out, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I don't even remember what it was. It wasn't that significant of a thing. But my brother-in-law actually at the time said, wow, that sounds like it's an emergency. He goes, some people think that everything's an emergency, and it's not always an emergency. And he was being very gentle and trying to let me know that I was overreacting. And it wasn't till a few days later where his words came in my head again, and I thought about the situation, I realized, oh my goodness, I was totally overreacting, and I started becoming conscious of that pattern in myself. So wanted to change it, and I know I've been really successful in it, because now the opposite happens, where people say I'm incredibly calm and peaceful when stuff is happening, and they wonder how I do it. And I guess there's kind of a peaceful calmness that I energetically carry around with me all the time, because I just would walk in places and people would say to me, with all that's going on, with all this chaos in the world and all this stuff that's going on, how can you be so calm and peaceful? I was like, I don't know, I don't feel like there's anything to be freaking out about. So, my mind had completely changed the way I dealt with that. And we can choose what we want to become and how we want to shape our mind. We really do have that power, and once you get a hold of that and you start running your emotions, you start running your thoughts, you take back over that driver's seat, and your emotions are not running you anymore, you're driving them, your life starts to change in significant ways. Because let's say something bad did happen, let's say somebody stole your car. I mean, that's an intense thing to have happen, and you don't know what to do. Instead of telling yourself, it's the end of the world and freaking out and stuff, which is normal, you can tell yourself that a solution is going to be found. You've paid your insurance. It's going to be okay. Think about people to reach out to give you a ride, and just not totally freak out. I mean, it'd be normal to freak out, don't get me wrong. It's just an example. But, you know, it goes back to thinking about yourself in a positive way, to recognize when you're thinking negative thoughts. Like, say you're looking in the mirror and you put on an outfit and you're just like, oh my gosh, like this makes me look so fat, and or I feel like this pink makes me look like a giant piece of, bubble gum or whatever. And you start feeling bad about yourself and you start hurting, then it's time to stop and actually look at yourself. And, it depends on what you want to do. But if I was doing that, I would say, look at how beautiful you are. Look at how blessed you are to have a body, to have hands and feet, and to be able to do all that you do with your body, and just focus on tons of positives. There are times, even still, that I will look in the mirror and I will congratulate myself, because a lot of the time people aren't going to congratulate us for the things that they don't realize are difficult for us. And so I literally will say, oh my gosh, looking in the mirror, you did so awesome today. You are just an awesome, amazing person. I am so proud of you for making that effort. I'm so proud of you for accomplishing that. Or look, you killed it today. You did your workout or whatever. And even though at first it felt kind of weird, it actually helped. And I started to see myself in a better light. And then when I went to like UPW, it wasn't that foreign, or it felt very comfortable and made me laugh when we were taught by Joseph McClendon that we needed to celebrate ourselves and pat ourselves on the back. And he taught us like how to give ourselves a high five and do the goddess pose, or the warrior pose, whatever you want to call it, and be like, when you do a simple thing, like he used the example of using the restroom, that you put your hands on your hip. I know you can't see it, but you can imagine it. And you'd be like, yes, I did that. And he challenged us that the next time that we used the restroom that we did that. And I actually did, and it was awesome. I laughed and stuff, but then I started using it at other times. Or he'd tell us to pat ourselves on the back and be like, I freaking rock. So that's why I love Joseph McClendon so much. That, and him teaching me that it's scientifically proven that if you smack your own backside that you'll feel better. So when I'm dancing around and doing exercise and stuff, to be in the absolute best state before I serve clients, serve you guys, it's part of what I do. Like, I admit it on Facebook. Yep, I was smacking my butt this morning. And a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about, but now you do. Okay, so it's important to disrupt those patterns, become aware of them, and disrupt them. And you can also indirectly help others disrupt their patterns just by disrupting yours. Because if you're changing, then they have to change how they respond as well, because you're no longer filling the same role and acting the same way. And over time, you can watch your entire family or friends, co-workers, wherever you want to use this, start to evolve and start to change and start to improve. So one of the ways that we can turn our hurt into hope is to realize that, like I've mentioned it a little bit in previous videos so far, is that the things that we went through, the struggles we went through, that they actually are the fuel, the power that is behind us in who we are and who we've become, and all that we have to offer, all the skills we've developed, all the talents, every single life experience, whether at the time we interpreted it as a trial or a challenge, or even if it was devastating, we literally were able to take that and use it to motivate us, to move us forward in hope towards our goals and dreams, whatever those are. And I fully believe and know it to be true that those hopes and dreams that are put in us, and they're put there because that is who we are, and that's what we are supposed to do and who we're supposed to become. And it's like the challenge that we've been given. Are you going to overcome your fear? Are you going to overcome mindset? Are you going to make the choices that it's going to take to be able to reach those goals and those dreams? Because everything is available to us. It may not happen as fast as we want or the way that we want, but as long as we keep on moving towards those goals and we keep taking action till we find the way to reach them, we will. Even before I realized this concept or learned it myself, I realized it was true when I looked back on my life. Anything that I believed with absolute certainty that I was going to do, that I must do, that I decided must happen, did happen. And if I wasn't really committed and I was like, oh, it'd be nice if this happens, or it's okay if this happens, if that was the case, then it didn't happen. When I decided I'm going to write my book, it got written. When I decided, like the second book in my series, Many Angels' Wings, which I released this year, I decided this year that, oh my goodness, it's been almost 5 years since I released the first book. That's a really long time. So I decided I'm releasing it this year. And not only did I release it, then I got the audiobook done within the same year, which was faster than I did with the first book. But I decided. And the same thing happened with years ago with my first album that I released, called Only Prayers Away, which I literally created just to benefit other people. And when I created it, I had no idea how far it would go or how long it would last, or that all these years later I would still be getting royalties for it every quarter. I just knew at the time they got the inspiration where, God's telling me, Charity, you need to make this album. Charity, you need to create it. So I took the steps forward to create it, even though people told me that it was completely likely to be impossible for me to do at the time, because I was a mom with young kids, the really tight budget, and they're like, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars to even have it made. But I was determined to find a way. And because I connected with a great sound artist and some really talented youth that could hear my song and then create the music on the spot, like I literally was able to get it completely created, all recorded and produced. 1,000 copies, hard copies, in the days that there were hard copies. That tells you about how old this was. It was before it was all digital, for less than $1,000. That, my friends, is a real big miracle if you think about it. And today people know how to do it even more affordably than that if they have the right connections or they develop the skills. And at the time though, it was totally just flying by the seat of my pants, trying to find a way to do it with what I had. And the way was provided because I determined that it was going to be created. And that's how it is with anything that we decide. You just have to decide that it's what you really want, and then not give up until you find the way to get it. And I know that sounds way simplified, but it's the truth. So hopefully you've been able to glean several secrets out of this, because I've given you more than the 2 that I promised. And I look forward to seeing you in the next module.